I'm not going to send you back into a burning house,
Right.
but in the end, it's your decision. If they express this to their best friend, there's the bias about, well, you keep falling for the wrong guys and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then there's the bias about the partner in question. Is I never liked him in the first place, and it's hard to get advice on what to do without those harsh opinions colored onto the situation. So with the coach, it's we don't know each other from a can of paint. I'm approaching this strictly without bias, and I'm going to help you achieve your goal.
Do a podcast with me for like ever, because I feel like we can really bring some things to the table when it comes to discussions, healing. What's up, man?
Hey. My head is cut off. Okay.
All right. Look at this guy with the purple flowers in the background. Man, would you tell
Get the flowers in
there? Would you tell them just how crazy our conversations be when we on offline?
The conversations are irreverent. I think if you
let me write that. Irreverent. Let me write that down. Let me Google that one. All right, man, it's good to see you, man. Good to see you.
You too, man.
All right,
likewise.
so I wrote down some questions. To make this, I guess, an impactful session for the people today, especially if they're taking time out their Thursday and coming to check us out.
Fantastic, little holiday weekend,
I'm 32 years young, so I'm not. I call you big brother. Actually, no, I'm 40. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right. So first off, I'm gonna ask this question. All right, who are you? Where are you from? The biggest question is, and how much money you make a year?
See, this is the kind of conversation we get into. See, both of us, we're coaches, and coaches have a certain stigma. I guess stigma may not be the right word, but they have there's an attachment, if you will, to that we're supposed we're having esteem or a certain dignity to it. And that's true, but at the end of the day, we're just regular people, regular men. We have our own idiosyncrasies, we have our own inside jokes, we say a lot of ignorant things, a lot of self-depreciating things. We're just I'm a grown kid, and I know you're the same way, so it's funny for people to be able to see that.
And I'm glad you don't charge me fees every time I call you. Like, you don't answer your phone first off, but I'd be like, guess what, man? Look what happened. See what had happened in my life.
I have,
and it's cool, man.
Get the invoice. You gave me the wrong address.
Yeah, my bad. Cash app. I had to shut the cash app down. But anyway, you're from what part of Michigan are you from?
I am from Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
Flint, Michigan.
You're from Flint.
Yes, indeed.
I was talking to you earlier. I was talking about how a lot of my best friends are from Michigan.
Absolutely.
A lot of them, and we're just real cool, real down to earth. And why did you start coaching?
That Midwestern vibe. For some reason, it's not showing me that I'm live on mine.
You live? I see it. Thumbs up. Anybody in the room? Thumbs up. Let us know that you can see him or not.
No, it says that I'm live, but on my page it doesn't say that I'm live.
Interesting. Are you on the computer?
No, I'm looking at it on the computer, but I'm on my phone.
Okay. That's weird. Hopefully it works itself out. But,
hey man, it's all good.
Don't be technology like it should be.
It's all good. They know where it's at. They got the links.
All right. Yeah, and it's gonna be on replay. So big questions. I got some big questions for you. Hopefully people find these questions valuable. Why did you start coaching? I'm gonna ask you.
Man, it was something that I had always wanted to do, but my dislike of social media got in the way of doing it. My own insecurities about social media. I didn't want to be doing this. I didn't want to be on live and putting my face out. I'm a private guy, but Coach Opus, rest in peace, was the motivator to say, hey, look, we need to do this. We see how certain things are right now, and we don't like how we need, from what we've known, what we've experienced, we could add some value to the marketplace, to this era, and we can help this a little bit of a slice of people, man. We need to help people. So I had to put my own insecurities to the side, man, and you know, bring my gift, whatever you want
Yeah.
to call it, to the world. And
that's what, you know, I was listening to the book last night, Think and Grow Rich. They were talking about, you know, I've listened to this book so many times, bringing something to the marketplace where you feel is lacking in the marketplace. And so what I'm hearing you say is you saw coaches, because that's why I started coaching too. Like I wanted to become the type of coach I was looking for when I was going through my issues. So I saw that gap. And for me, it was attachment styles. For you, it's like ebb and flow, right? It's one, you try to I guess best fill in the gap where your current clients are struggling with,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Because your YouTube channel has like transformed over the years, and even your Instagram
Yeah.
has started to know uh, keeping up
Mhm.
to date. You know, it's really hard to like keep this same persona throughout your whole entire social media
Right.
career, right? I don't even know if you want to call it a persona. It's just that you grow so much in different areas that what
Yeah.
you talked about 4 years ago, you may not talk about
Right.
today. You know,
Right.
you may have to go back and be like, remember what I said 4 years ago? Yeah, I've had some life
Yeah.
experiences. It ain't like that no more.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
you should be able to do that, right? Because
Yeah.
it's growth,
It,
if you
it is,
ask
bro.
me, and it's being the most authentic self you can be.
Exactly.
So we didn't want to talk about that. So I have, you know, the question that I asked you on the phone. I'm going to go ahead and ask you those now. Hopefully you did your homework and
Homework,
you
man.
got
I
some.
don't, man. I don't do it. I just freestyle, man. That's all. I don't do
You
it. I
know,
don't
it's funny
read at
because I
all. I don't
I
study
remember
at
when I
all.
first told you that I freestyle and I just come off the like, you know, the dome I don't script, and you're like, really? I can't even
Yeah.
tell. Like you
Yeah.
just, it
Man.
just seems
Yeah. I script a
maybe it's
lot
a
of stuff.
talent.
My lives are totally just,
Yeah.
off the cuff. I like to
So
keep it
if you
that way.
guys have some questions, hold on. You guys have no questions yet. Okay, well,
Man, this is
it is
crazy.
what it is.
It's been a long time coming, man.
Yeah, I know.
But what you
Yeah.
just said a moment ago is real because you look back to what you were doing 4 years ago, and you were doing the best that you could with what you've experienced and what you've studied and the knowledge that you've acquired. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem that trips people up is in terms of the audience is they
Right.
sometimes don't give you the latitude to grow.
Right.
And it's you grow along with me. My
Mm-hmm.
studies, my travels will allow me to educate myself further.
Right.
I have coaches.
Right.
I
Right.
was thinking
Yeah,
about
for
booking a
sure.
session with you the other day. I was like, man, I should book a session just so he can point out some things that I may not see as a coach. I'm willing to
Yeah.
do that. I
Yeah.
constantly learn, and as you learn, you say, okay, here's a better way of doing it. It's just like grandma's recipe. Grandma's recipe is always sacred, but hey, may not it may not need as much paprika as a recipe is called for. So you fine tune
Wow.
it and fine tune it and fine tune it. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna see my family this weekend, man. My mom
Right.
has constantly been making the same recipes for 30, 40 plus years and
Yeah.
still like, I could do this better. This is the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. And in 5 years, I'll have met more people,
Mm-hmm.
coach more people, help so many more people. And where I am now, I probably won't even, I'll probably look back on where I am now and say, man, it was
Yeah.
primitive. It was,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, not as thorough as it is, in the future. But
Yeah.
that's growth, and the audience has to be able to grow with
Yeah.
the content creator, if you will.
That's so funny you said that because I was on a call with a client uh 2 days ago. And this is the reason I asked you because he asked me, he said, why did you become a coach? And I said, honestly, if you look back at my early videos, I was bubbly, I was cheery, I was brand spanking new. I was wet behind the ears
Uh,
and it was a trauma trigger. It
really,
was a trauma response. It was a trauma response. I was going through a divorce
yeah, that,
and
that you were in the middle of it.
yeah, yeah. And I had already known, I went through coaching school, had already known about relationships. I had been mentoring for a long time. And I was like,
Hmm.
this is the direction I want to head. But I want to get to this question though. What is the biggest hurdle you see when people are recovering from breakups?
Fear. Fear. I mean, we just human beings already are dealing with fear of the past, fear of success, fear of, just their own insecurities, their own trauma that they've experienced from previous relationships and their childhood. So when they go through a breakup, it's all of the skeletons from the past are bubbling up to the surface, adding on to the trauma that they're already experiencing from the breakup. So it's just like, man, it's an avalanche of hurt and pain, and it's the fear. It's the fear that there's another failed relationship. There's a fear that everything that they told me was false. Everything that we worked for, everything that we've built meant nothing now. It's all for naught now. And there's no manual. There's really no official manual.
You say it's like fear of change, fear of losing a familiarity, or is that what you're saying? It's
fear takes
the unknown.
It takes on so many different masks. So I would say the fear of this, there's no manual for this. There's no, what do I do next? And at that point, when you're afraid of something, you just go back to your instincts. You go back to your own devices. And many times, because of this situation, we're in deep water. We just don't know what to do. And it's usually not the best course of action. And if you're experienced and you're encamped by fear, you're going to react in a fear-based response. And it's never going to be the best situation. So that fear is just blanketed on people, and it really does a number on them. That's what I see in my so then when you ask somebody to go no contact, which is also something
I was just gonna say that.
They've never done that. They're afraid of that. So it's for me, it's fear, number one thing.
So when you tell them to go no contact, I think the biggest fears that arise from my clients is fear of them not missing you, fear of them forgetting about you, fear of someone else getting them. Like it's all led by fear. Fear of never getting another chance with the person. But it's honestly, it depends on the case situation, because some don't need no contact. Some people are still in communication. The other person just may be apprehensive about, taking things a little bit further, getting closer again. But for the big part of, like, if it was some things that needed to be resolved, the person's in a weird state, like no contact is the only thing you can do. It's the only thing, because it gives them time to reset. It gives them time to start to see you differently and start to feel those emotions again. Because the last thing that you want is to, like, inflame the feelings that they already have more. So, which is, I'm done with this relationship's over. I just want to be happy.
Right.
And if you're sitting there like, but baby, I make you happy. Like, not right now.
Right. Right. Man,
you're
speaking my language.
I have to agree with you, brother. Fear. When you're going through that breakup and that recovering, is one of the biggest hurdles to get over. All right, so
there's a couple of questions in there. This is a lot. So what advice do you give people? Like when I get this a lot. And throughout the first 15 minutes of the call, you've already figured out that this person was unhealthy, that this person was not someone they should even consider to get back with. What advice do you give people that, without trying to, like, diminish what they're feeling or to try to dismiss, what they're actually going through, what advice do you give them to, take next, the next steps that they need to take? Even if like, all right, let's say that they're in a situation where, it's like some verbal abuse going on, and you may pick up on a little bit of toxic traits from the other person. Would you say, hey, what I would do? Actually, I'm asking you first. Right.
What advice do you give?
So even before I give the advice, I have them verbalize it. So they're putting it out there for themselves to hear it.
Right.
And I do this for a little bit of time for them to really catch on to it, to say, wow, that really happened, or this is really happening. This is what I've experienced. And when they start to hear it from their mouths,
right,
when they hear it with their own ears,
it
really starts to set in to say, this may not be the best situation for me. And I'm just leading
if you say he cheated on exes, he cheated on his exes, he drained my bank account,
Right.
And you have to sit there and say, yeah, that's so that's what you're saying is you'll just let them sit with those emotions. And a lot of the times what I see from my clients too is they just need to verbalize it and feel it. They need to just get it out
Yep.
there, put it into this realm, and then they start to sift through the mess. They're like, oh, now that I'm saying it really does sound bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's what they experience. And they may have never even, it's just like, you're in your home and the refrigerator is running, it's humming, but you just kind of go deaf to it after a while. It's just white noise. You know it's there. You know your refrigerator is on, but you go through the whole, humdrum of your relationship, and you tend to just, it gets normalized. And then you get jolted out of the breakup, and then it's like, okay, wow, I need someone to make sense of everything. And then it's like, I'm in the mode of getting them back because you're dealing with this emotional response, but you're forgetting the elephant in the room. And it hurts. It hurts to hear, but it puts everything into perspective. So then by then, towards the end of the call, when, I'm able to give them, advice in totality, they and with the ironic that we talked about this earlier, they still want the toxicity and the unhealthiness back. But that's just because they're responding to the loss versus, human beings respond more to a loss than a gain. They're just responding to wanting to alleviate the pain. And that, I hate saying this, but because of when I was in the same situation, I didn't want to hear it either. Most people are just not ready to have that conversation.
Yeah. And it's like what a client, not a client, but actually a coach told me. An example he gave was, if you're walking down the street and you're going at the end of the street, end of the block is $500. And then as you're walking, $5 fall out your back pocket. And if you're more concerned about the $5 that fell out your pocket than the $500 you can gain at the end of the block, then you have some real serious attachment issues there, because you're not seeing the grander picture. And that's why I like coaching, is when they have those aha moments and they're like, now that I think about it, it's because for the first part, you see all the time where they'll have to do follow-up session. They say, I feel like I really painted my ex in a bad light on the first call. Like, well, you were traumatized. You were in an emotional state. You were probably in a shocking state. So I just kind of took it as like, I was a sounding board for the first call. So and that's, I was about to say something you said I was going to speak to. Can't remember it now.
But that's funny that you say that. I had a call with a young lady last year, towards the end of last year. First call was, he's unhealthy, he's toxic, he's this, he's that. I need to move on. How do I move on? Help me move on. This is not good for me. He brings out the worst in me. Second call, maybe she booked it maybe 2 weeks later. Second call was, hey, I saw him, I ran into him, and we were intimate. I feel bad for it, but I painted him in the bad light, and it was actually me who was the culprit and put the toxicity in. I was just projecting my fears and my trauma onto him. He's actually a good guy, and everything that I said on the call, the first call, was him in response to what I was doing and putting onto him. And I'm sorry I painted him in a bad light, but it was really all me. I said, and that's all.
And that's interesting, because you don't often see people taking radical accountability like that. Where they just completely take all of the blame.
Radical responsibility. I think there's some. What's a good aha moment for you?
Imagery. If someone, the old saying, all right, it was the old ball and chain. I picture someone just dragging a ball and chain behind them, and then they're like, man, I can't wait to get rid of this ball and chain. Like, you're complaining about it. One leg swole, the other leg like atrophy because it's not really using as much muscles. But then once someone comes and says,
I have a horrible joke about. I was this close to saying it, man. I'll tell you off camera. I'm sorry, man. That shouldn't. It's a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
ball and chain.
I'll listen to it later. But as soon as that ball falls off that chain, they're looking back and they're like, what happened to it? I kind of want it back. It's like, why would you want something back that you had so many issues with? You know, you were looking for a saw, you know, as you walking down the street, but then it falls off and that ball leaves you, and here we are. You're wanting it back.
What's an aha moment that you've had on the call recently that made you just go, huh? And, you know, made you realize something about maybe something that you weren't doing or something that you failed to do in your coaching that just maybe rebooted your software, upgraded your software, and said, okay, from here, this is a watershed moment.
It was a person that I was talking to that said, Coach, I don't want to cut you off. And for me, like speaking on camera, being a person always has to carry the conversation, always having to like speak on YouTube videos, like you need to speak a lot. That like hit me because it made me question if I listen enough, you know, because I used to, you know, that was one of my strengths when I first started, of being able to just actively listen and doing motivational interviewing and just trying to really get to the bottom of where they're at. Right. And it almost feels like I've gotten too accustomed to going to advice too quickly, you know. So that made me check myself of like, all right, patience. Let's help them get to the problem themselves. Let's help them understand, you know, why they reached out to me to begin with. And that's the very first question I asked: what is your goal for this call today? And I follow up of like, all right, was this a good interview for you? I mean, was this a good call for you? I was listening to that on a podcast too, and wrote that question down. Yeah, he said that I'm not going to say the podcast name, but he said at the end of every call, the last 5 minutes, he would ask the person, "What was your biggest takeaway from this call today?" And he would let them work through it. He said because it helps them understand why they decided to reach out to you in the first place. And it kind of gives you a little bit of validation of like, all right, I'm a valuable person and I bring something to the marketplace that other people can't, because I get that a lot where they say, Coach, I picked you because of X reason or whatever. And it's hard not to get caught up in that because you start to think like, oh, well, I'll just go right to advice. Like, nah, I still have to go through the same process of helping them arrive to their advice, to their own conclusion and their own decision, because it's their life. Yeah. And they're going to be the one to have to live it, you know?
So let me ask you a question. What would you say to people who, from that point, what you just said, well, if I'm just going to talk through, if the coach is going to let me talk through what I'm experiencing, why even have a coach if I can just talk myself through?
If they had that person, they would have had it. They would have done it already. Because most of the time they reach out and say, my friends don't want to hear it, my family don't want to hear it anymore. Or there's someone that say, I can't speak to anyone about this. This is why I reached out to you.
Right.
And I know that's a complaint that a lot of people have when they talk to me about therapy, about, you know, they don't really get like some actionable advice. It's good to help them work through some of the things that they've been through in the past, but like what to do with that, how to put it. I was talking to one of my clients. He said, all of my Legos are out on the carpet right now. I knocked the tower down. And that's
I like that.
And so how do we put this back together?
Right.
And not just a hodgepodge. How do we put it back together where it actually looks nice and I feel comfortable about the way that it's turning out? I'm like, wow, that's a good question. How do we do that? That's a joint effort.
It's a joint effort. I think one of the main things is getting coaching is it gives you someone to talk to that has zero bias.
Right.
I don't know
skin in the game, right?
Man, I don't care if you get back. Well, I don't want to say care, but there's no judgment if you get back with them or not. I'm going to help you. Well, I'm not going to send you back into a burning house.
Right.
But in the end, it's your decision. But there's the bias about us, or them rather, that if they express this to their best friend, there's the bias about, well, you keep falling for the wrong guys and so on and so forth. Right. And then there's the bias about the partner in question. Is I never liked him in the first place. And it's hard to get, you know, advice on what to do without those harsh opinions colored onto the situation. So with the coach, it's we don't know each other from a can of paint. I'm approaching this strictly without bias, and I'm going to help you achieve your goal. And I don't think I think people miss that, and maybe that's our fault for not expressing that in the content, to say, look, coaching is something that you can get. It's a blank canvas that there's no opinion, there's no bias, and we're going to help you achieve the best outcome, even if it's something that you may not want at the time. And I think that's one thing about myself. I can say, I'm going to tell you what you don't want to hear. You may not appreciate it right now, but maybe in a year's time, maybe even 2 years, after you listen to this call multiple times, you may pick up on something that was like swallowing bitter medicine in the moment, but later on it actually was beneficial for you.
That's part of the reason why a lot of people don't want to go to the doctor, because they don't want to feel judged. Like if they show up and their doctor say, like, they know they have the condition, and they go there and they're like, and the doctor's like, well, you have this, and they don't care. Like the doctor just like, I don't know how you got it. I don't care that you have it. This is the prescription, so you can take it if you want, and a lot of people say, I'm not taking it. I'm against that type. It's like, well, you went to someone for the remedy.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of how I see coaching too, of like, I'm not going to judge. Like, what's the point of me judging? That's not beneficial to you. But I say I'm more like a time consultant. Like, where should you put your time right now? Should you keep investing in this person? Should you keep waiting? Should you do the 90-day no contact or whatever?
Oh, don't tell them the 90 days.
90, yeah. If I say, I think you might want to give yourself a couple months before you reach back out there. Like, what?
Yeah.
Well, you keyed their car, so paint jobs aren't cheap.
So Courtney, we got a question. You want to grab a question?
Okay,
in the comment section.
Where's that at?
So
there's a couple.
There's a couple in there. So Sabello 78. Okay, if they're still here. If not, hey, the people in the comment.
How you see the questions I don't see? All right, if you see them, then cool.
Okay.
Then one of us sees them.
So she says, my first time no contacting him and feeling guilty, but have to set my boundaries. So that's very. I feel like I've heard a lot, and I know you have too, but I've never heard anybody say they feel guilty for going no contact, and that speaks to a huge issue, that you feel some sort of obligation. And what I would say to that is, you feel guilty without knowing what her situation is. This to say, on the surface, obviously they left her, and she's feeling guilty about turning her back on her partner, and that's a very, I would say, a very dangerous position to be in, because now you feel some type of obligation to someone who has clearly made it known they don't want to be with you, but you still feel some sort of obligation and some sort of tie. And if you don't address that guilt that you have, which could be from something that your mother told you when you were 6 years old, throughout your teenage years, that you shouldn't leave anyone, you shouldn't ever quit on a relationship, always fight, never give up, and that sense of obligation that you have to not quit is transformed into guilt about turning your back on someone who has maybe cheated on you, disrespected you, or just clearly said they don't love you anymore and want to move on. If you don't address that guilt, no contact is probably going to be one of the worst situations that you've ever experienced, because now you feel like it's a jail sentence, and that this is something that's imprisoning you versus freeing you. No contact should free you, and you have to use this time. Be thankful of this time that you're away from it. Don't look at it as guilt. Look at it as something that you have the opportunity not to break the attachment to him, to be able to think with more clarity and have more peace and harmony in your life, but to also address that feeling of guilt that you have. Use this time and change your mindset towards this, to say that this is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and she talked about boundaries, right? Like, she wants to set the boundary. If you don't, for me, I feel like you're in some way, shape, or form, you're enabling some type of behavior. Like, what you're saying is, it's okay for you to do X, Y, Z. It's okay for you to break up with me, and for me to still reach out to you, for me to still have you as a friend or a colleague or whatever it is. It's okay. And that's one of no contact is basically saying it's not okay. Like if you want to leave my life and not work it through, not talk it through, not be, mature about this, if it was in an immature way. All right, so here it is. She said, I left him because he acted disrespectful, but I know he has very insecure, that's why. Exactly what I just said. If you stuck around, you'd be enabling. You'll be making a covert contract and saying, it's okay for you to say and do these things to me. I'll always be here. And that's not someone, especially if it's the type of person that picks up on that, taking your kindness for a weakness, then they're just going to continue the behaviors. They're just going to keep drawing a line in the sand a little bit further away. Like, all right, now I have this much space and you have this much in the relationship. So
good point. And it's very interesting what she just said. She's almost, and I don't mean this in no disrespect or any harshness, but hey, you did put this out here, but it almost sounds like she's making a justification for his disrespect, regardless of if he's insecure or if it's because of his trauma or if he's bipolar, whatever it is. Disrespect is disrespect,
right?
And you have to don't color it, treat it head on. And it's difficult to do it because I know this is someone that you love. This is someone that you care for, and this is someone you probably understand the source of his disrespect. But disrespect is pure disrespect. You have to put your needs first, and that's creating that boundary to say disrespect is unacceptable because
if anything, how about this? How about you doing? Let's just see it as like that's a labor of love. Like if you not let him disrespect you, maybe you won't treat people the same way in the future. Like if anyway, you're mentoring him by letting him go and say this type of behavior, but this is something that should have been worked out in childhood, where like you're taught not to treat people certain ways. You're helping him out. Like you're giving him a gift. You're giving him the gift of releasing him so he can. It's just like, if you have an employee that's a terrible employee and you ended up letting him go and he goes out and gives you a job, asks for a job reference from you, and the person calls you and say, hey, how is he like in this area? Like instead of setting him up for failure, I would say, well, he's kind of late pretty often. He struggled in that area. So you're actually helping him grow as a person by not putting him in the same predicament that he was in with you. If that make any sense.
100%.
Hopefully that analogy worked.
100%. I had a call yesterday, same situation, that this person, their partner, had done this the entire relationship. And as a result, no one has ever really checked it to the point of severity to say, this is unacceptable. Their relationship lasted years. They have children. They got engaged. So it almost, in essence, co-signed and accepted the behavior, but as opposed to meeting someone and they come with disrespect and saying, no, this ends here. This is not something I tolerate. When you approach it from that level, maybe they don't see it in the moment, but eventually they will see, I'm not getting what I want as a result. So something about me has to change, because now, as you said, someone is consistently late in there, and people are letting it be known about them. They have to come face to face with that, because now it's ringing out. But if you continue to get the goodies and the accolades and and the rewards, despite your behavior, you're essentially saying it's okay. So you have to set that tone. That's a major boundary, and it's paying it forward. That it may not change with you, but it will change for the next person.
Yeah. And I know that's hard to hear. That's hard to hear. I was talking to a client yesterday about this. I call it the casino syndrome, where you're sitting at the slot machine and you're just pouring in coins and you're like, man, I gotta go get another deposit so I can try this. And then the instant that you get up, the next person behind you hear ding 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 ding, you're like, mother.
That was supposed to be me.
Like, you gotta listen, for real, like straight up, like this
really going on.
Right. I just invested all that in you, and this person's getting the payout. So unfortunately, that's what relationships are. That's why when people come to me and they're like mid-40s and they're like, I've only had 2 serious relationships, and I'm like, well, you don't have a whole lot of healthy relationship experience from the sound of it.
Exactly. So one more comment, going back up, I'm not sure where it landed.
Following up. So this is, to finish up her question. Thanks, guys. Needed this. He's a borderline, and I'm an empath. Well, you should have
Is
left
that
one.
from the same person? Is that from the
Yes,
same person?
same person. Yeah, he's a borderline and borderliner, and I'm an empath. So
that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality.
Yeah.
All right.
So
All right,
we got one comment up a little bit. 3 North. I'm not sure if she's still in the live, but she says,
okay.
Well, she asks, what about if both parties are applying no contact?
That's what they call
So,
it, old Mexican standoff, right? Is that how you I'm not going. You ain't going. I ain't going.
right.
Well,
right. What I would say to that is only time will tell.
Yeah.
And if you have a partner who's stubborn or their ego is in check, what I would say to that is that's usually the case. If someone is like, I'm just going to stall them out, they're ignoring me or they're not contacting me, so I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah.
Is that really someone that you want to be with? Because they're not using that period of time wisely. You should, as we discussed earlier, you said it in every time we talk, you said it in your videos. I say it all the time. No contact is not about your ex or getting the back. It's about you. It's about putting time and energy to build yourself back up, to become your most thriving self, to get clarity about everything. And if they have that aspect, if they have the mentality of, I'm just going to stall them out, they're not really doing anything to work on themselves or to look at the flaws of the relationship. So by the time they do reach out, or if you reach out to them, they're still the same. And then at that point,
it goes back to
going
what
to be
you said in the beginning. The very first question, what's the biggest hurdle recovering from a breakup? You said there's a fear. And for that case, that's the fear of being vulnerable. Both of you guys have this fear of being vulnerable.
Yep.
And don't want to get rejected. So there's a fear of being vulnerable and a fear of being rejected. Those are the two things blocking you from reaching out.
So the interesting thing about that is by the time that they do come back together, not get back together, but they start re-engaging in communication, the breakup has added another layer of strife on top of the unanswered questions and the unanswered problems that were swept under the rug before the breakup, that thing that caused the relationship to end. Now you have another layer of problems.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
very true. Yeah.
That's
so now really, it's just like, and that's when people start to say, all right, well, I guess it's just too much water under the bridge, to overcome.
Or an X for a reason.
Well, I was listening to another podcaster, and I kind of toyed with this idea too of just getting through the mess when you first start seeing someone, and ask them like, as some of the questions you asked in the beginning of. So the question was, how do you repair this? How will we repair this if it gets broken? And I was toying with this too. Like, what if you go to counseling or whatever, couples counseling, as a preliminary, like as like something that's going to prevent you from letting those problems that you're inevitably going to have later on down the line get too far out of hand. So it's almost like when you take out a loan, it's like, all right, what's my backup plan here? Will I be able to pay for this down the line? Do I have enough streams of income coming in? So you figure it out beforehand. But so many people see counseling as like, I'm not broken, or I'm not damaged, or I'm not. Well, we all can, like you said, you have a coach. We all can use some type of preventative service or some type of coaching that's going to help us when things start to get rocky. Because I was talking to a guy, real young guy. He's 20, just turned 21, and
21.
And I was telling him, like, look, man, listen, you're forever is a long time, right? So if you get with someone at the age of 20, that means you have to stay with each other through 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and you expect the check engine light to never come on. I mean, it's going to come on. It's just a matter of when. So figuring out how do we deal with this before it even happens, I think it's key.
Man, that check engine light's gonna come on. You got to take it to the shop, and you got to take it to the shop, and guy got a Jerry curl with a cigarette. That ain't nothing but alternator right there. I can do that. I can do that.
I'll get that out there real quick. You know, but
Right.
how many people do that? People don't do that
Right.
though. People don't say, all right,
They don't.
all right. I guess I just throw the vehicle
Yeah.
away. I get
Just
a
throw it away.
new car.
Scrap it. Just scrap it. No.
Yeah.
You need, like you said, you need a team. You know,
Right.
I love hip hop. You love hip hop, man. You know, what do people say when they get on that stage and the BT Awards? Hey, I just want to thank my team. And every athlete says, I want to thank my team. And what they're not including in that is not just their team, their physical teammates. They're thinking the coaches, they're thinking the front office,
Right.
but they're also thinking about my strength and conditioning coach, my shooting coach, my nutritionist, you know, my masseuse. I mean, you think about
my
the top
mindset,
my mindset
all that.
coach. You think about the top performers. I was watching Quarterback on Netflix the other day.
Okay.
Pat Mahomes. Are you
Mahomes? I'm not a Chiefs fan.
You're not a Chiefs fan?
I'm still with LA. I'm with LA now.
You with LA?
Yeah, I stuck with the Rams even though they left the loop, but that's a topic for another day. So
that's a topic for the Shadow Self podcast. But
the Shadow Self podcast. For sure.
Well, Pat Mahomes has, you know, every football, as you know, being a former player and former coach. Or are you still coaching? You still coaching football?
I'm not coaching. No, I'm not coaching football no more. Yeah, but I do miss it sometimes. Yeah.
But they have every team has a quarterback coach. You know, he is a quarterback coach. He also has a throwing coach. I don't even know that. You know, Steph Curry has a shooting coach. They say, you know, how can I get 0.1% better? This is already after they've won chips. Right. They've won MVPs. They're all world. They've won Olympic medals. They're already in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Already. Yeah. They're saying, how can I get 0.1% better? How can I get 0.1% faster? How can I recover just 0.1% better? The top performers in business, in just life, period, they all have a team of people around them to help them get to that next level. Yeah. And people watching this, if you say, wow, how can I take that? How can I take that little nugget and apply it to my life? You need a team of people around you. That means you or me or a pastor or someone who could, you know, give you an outside point of view, an outside perspective, you know, take it. You know, if it's from a book, if it's from a journal. One thing that I always do, I don't want to give away too much of my exercises, but I do what's called a podcast talk. I have them imagine themselves being on a podcast with themselves and imagining them as their best self, as the host, and interviewing them as far as where they are now to help verbalize what they're experiencing. You know,
because a lot of people, that makes sense, because a lot of people, when I ask them if they journal, they say, I can't journal. Well, do voice memo or do something like that to kind of keep track of where you're currently at this stage, and come back and listen to it, you know, a month from now. And you'll see a lot of growth most of the time. Or some people see that they've gone downhill, like they've regressed. So I get excited.
You can't manage what you can't measure.
I get excited when people say, "Yeah, well, she's with this guy, or she left me. He left me for this person," and I was like, "Well, you have a coach, so it's only a matter of time before they mess up. Will they be willing to reach out and try to repair this when things don't go well with them? You know, especially if they rebound or they monkey brushed over. Like, they don't know as much as you knew, but now you know more.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's interesting that you say that, man, because the new person, that's another fear. They also fear the new person that their ex is dating, the rebound, whatever it is, or just the potential of them to meet someone else. You know, the boogeyman is out there, and what if someone better comes along? And the thing is, you know, I want to help get people to the point where that's not even something that they should even think about, for one. But even then, you still have to.
Here's a question.
You have your best self, and it shouldn't even matter.
Now, before I forget this question, how much do you think age plays a part in people's scarcity mindset when they're getting out of a relationship? You know, let's say you're mid-30s, you've been married 10 years, and you're just so terrified to get back out there in the dating world. You feel like, oh, I'm washed up, I'm old man, whatever.
Washed up.
How much do you think that like matters, like Larry age?
Sorry.
We need a podcast.
Right. to be honest with you, I think
You think it matters?
I don't think the age matters, because someone who is 52 years old and they've been married for 19 years, they step out into this era, Web 2.0, social media era, smartphone era, dating app era. It is moving so fast that it's so scary.
Yeah.
There wasn't a Tinder, there wasn't an Instagram, there wasn't a Snapchat.
I mean, come on, T. Let's just be honest here. Most people don't want to do online dating.
They don't.
From the people that I've met, like they nope. Like, well,
I don't blame them.
Like, if you think the UPS guy's gonna pop up and be your one, like,
right,
you'll be waiting for a while,
right?
Because this is not how it really works. Like, I'm not willing to go into any new environments. I'm not willing to get on dating apps. Okay, what's your lead generation?
You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But if you want the outcome, if you want a desired outcome, then you're going to have to do something different. You can't do the same thing and expect the same results. You've experienced a life-altering situation. So meaning, it's just physics. You're going this way. That means in order to change the trajectory of that, you're going to have to do something equally or greater to change that trajectory. So if you want,
what would you tell someone that refuses to do dating apps? Like, don't even talk about Hinge, like, because that's not an option. Or
I've
okay,
experienced that a lot.
This scenario, a person that is not willing to date multiple people, they just hook on to the first person that they have a vibe with. And this is why I tell people, there's a reason why The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is so popular.
Yeah.
Their vetting process for who they're going to marry, which is the most important, could be the most financially destructive and important decision that you've ever made in your life. This is why it's so popular. Everyone glamorizes that and say, oh, well, yeah, I like this girl. But if you were to do that in your own personal life, and you were to say, I'm dating to be married, and I'm trying to find the person that's for me, they have a hard time getting past that stigma of what society will think about them. Or it's not like you have to go out there and be sleeping with everyone, but like getting to know people, trying to figure out what your options are, and especially if you feel like you have a lot to bring to the table and like you want kids, and who you decide to have a kid with, it should be thoroughly thought about, and the repercussion that come from that is like you can't even put a number on what will happen to you mentally, financially, emotionally.
That's fine.
So what would you say, back to my original question, to someone who are struggling to do that, and then if something happens, and I'll just see who wins out, who I align with better.
Yeah.
So if they're saying I won't do that, nope, what would you say?
I would say that you have to approach this with a little bit of practicality and take the romantic side of dating and finding that loved one out of it. Take the spontaneity out of this, take the Disney programming out of it, take the John Cusack, romance movie out of it, and start looking become a little bit more practical about the situation. If you're looking for a job, looking for a new position, new career, you're not going to choose one corporation and go on one interview. You're going to go on LinkedIn. You're going to brush up your resume, brush up your profile, and send it out to as many people as possible. Talk to as many people as possible. And people have a hard time shifting that mindset because, like I said, there's the spontaneity. There's the romantic. We just happened to meet at a coffee shop, and remember the whole commercials back in the day with the Taster's Choice. Where they were having the little romantic commercial with the person across the hall in the apartment. They were falling for each other over a cup of coffee.
Never remember that.
Those are some good. I'm showing my age here, but people have that. You just happen to run into each other, and the thing is, that can still happen, but it's not going to happen on your couch, and it's not going to happen with one person. I think when you do if you just decide to take it one person at a time, you're running the risk of making this person loom larger than life,
right?
And you end up in a position where you're possibly putting them on a pedestal and putting a lot of energy into this person, and which could lead to disappointment.
Right. And that's what a lot of people talk about is it's popular, what do you call it? Scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
Or one-itis.
Yeah.
Like they feel like this person is the one. And I've talked many times on my YouTube channel about that, about I don't think there's necessarily a one, you know, because you go through so many different stages in your life. They may be in a one in that moment, like you're in school, you're in college, you may have the one during that time. You go off to do your own career, you move to a different city.
Yeah.
They may no longer be the one anymore. They may be someone that you had a past with.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you should just approach all these relationships as like they're temporary, but if you learn to just be truly present with where you at and who you're with, and just see where that goes, kind of
being
present. Sounds like being a little bit of an avoidant there, but it's not really. It's actually like protecting your heart and accepting things as they come. You know, because many reasons people are scared to get married is because they're scared to get divorced.
Yeah.
So that's living way in the future, right? You're predicting something. Right. What do you call it? You're manifesting something. You're living in a reality that you're creating. That you usually the things that you're scared of the most are the ones that you cause to happen.
That's 100%.
Like
there's jealousy. There's a comment right here from I Am Color, or I'm a Color. I'm not sure how to say that. That ties into what we're just speaking about. It says, I am 65, just got dumped, and I'm scared I'll be alone for the rest of my years. That speaks to everything that we've just been speaking about, that we just talked about, that fear.
For the rest of his years.
65, I'm not sure how long you were married, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was, it's been quite a bit of time. So you have the disappointment of things ending and then being in this new era. It's kind of like, remember at the end of American Gangster with Denzel Washington?
Oh, yeah.
When he comes out of prison like 30 years later, and it's just a whole new world. It's like that. And the thing is, you can either look at this as the worst thing that ever happened to you or the best thing that ever happened to you. You may not be able to want to see that right now, but if you look at this from the point of, I'm in the twilight of my life and I don't deserve anyone, this is scary, I don't know what to do, then like you just said, your actions are going to be leading to what your thoughts are and what.
So if I'm in his shoes, if I'm 65, I'm talking to 65-year-old me. I'm thinking I'm about to be the best granddad there ever was. Like I'm gonna be at all the events. I'm gonna start pouring more into them, pouring more into the relationships around me that matter. You know, and just because usually when you stumble across someone that you end up having a long-term relationship with, it's usually not forced. You know, it could be someone that you've known and you bumped into in the grocery store. So I would start looking at that too, like what doors has this opened for me?
I would say I'm 65 years young.
Yeah.
Now I'm still in good health. I have, like you said, I have my grandchildren. I have a great grandchild on the way. I have all of this life experience. Now is the time to taste. I'm going to taste everything. Life is a buffet. I'm going to explore. I'm going to see all these new colors. I have the chance to really taste life, maybe for the first time in my life. Because you also know, hey, some people look at that age as a death sentence to say, wow, what's left for me? No, there's still so much available.
65, I'm like, I'm in Italy, baby.
Right.
I'm out that shot when I get back. For real.
I'm gonna be Mr. Steal Your Grandma. That's who I will transform myself. I will be down at the local YMCA, and this is the time for you to really. I would say now there's so many ways to meet people, so many ways to, regardless of any age. This is right now. I would say we're more connected than we've ever been, but we're less connected. When you step out into the world again, there's going to be a little bit of fear, but that fear should just be like, it should be turned into an excitement, just like you were when we were children. Yeah, you were afraid to ride your bike and take the training wheels off, but the excitement and the curiosity, and then being able to want to join in on the fun, and for the rest of the kids in the neighborhood that are already riding their bike, they outweigh that fear. Jumping out of a tree, the desire to do something cool and do something fun and something a little bit dangerous, it outweighed the hesitation that we had. Right now, your mindset needs to be shifted towards, I'm no longer terrified, or I still am terrified, because you can't ever get rid of fear, but you have to shape. Fear is not real. Danger is real, and there's no danger about being 65 and single again.
Right.
At all.
Right. Right.
There's nothing to fear from that. This should be, I would say, this could be your most exciting chapter of your life, if you allow it to be.
Yeah, and just I guess nerds pour into those relationships that matter. You know, and I can say that I'm blue in the face, but I do know that, like, if my relationship don't work out, like, I'm going to be okay. But it's harder for people who have been in this really long relationship, and then they're just turned back out into the wild. They're like come out of jail, they're like, what's a hinge? Like, I mean,
you missed that thing on the door. It's like in the Matrix, why did my eyes hurt? Because you never used them before. But the thing is,
that's a heavy one. Yeah.
Now is the time to maybe see what you've never seen before, and see colors that you've never seen before. It's just all about how you approach this. And
all right, we got one more
trying to minimize that it's scary. It is going to be scary because it's a new world, but just as it is scary, it can also be exciting.
Right. For sure. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I look
joyful.
I look at things like that a lot now, because I look at, like, job loss, homelessness, all that stuff, and I'm thinking there were a lot of doors that opened up for me. Homeless. All right, I don't have a mortgage anymore.
Yeah.
So it can come off as a little reckless, but at the same time, like, I forgot who the motivational speaker was. I think it might have been Jim Rohn, which is he said something like, you can just completely change your life. Like, you can pivot your life at any moment.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a fiance last night, and I was like, I think about how I have
What's
this
up, Jay?
degree, and do I even use this degree? Like, is this for what I do? It gave me a good foundation for what I do. But you can pivot and you can change. I know so many people that graduated and aren't in the field that they graduated in, and they got divorced and they end up with a new job. They're like a sales rep traveling all over the state. You're like, did you think you'd be doing this today? Like, no, not in a million years. But I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. Like, I hear that so many times.
So many times. And I always like to say, I love Jim Rohn, by the way, man. He's great.
Yes, my boy.
I always like to say that despite whatever curveball, whatever dark cloud is over us, I always recommend, always even ask myself, what is this message that's before me? What is being taught to me right now? What is the message that I can take from this? What is the purpose of this? I can find something. Even in death, I've lost so many people over the last couple of years, man, and there's always something that you can learn. When my dad died, and it was unexpected, and it was just actually just last week, his anniversary of his death, if you want to, for lack of a better phrase. I realize now that my hero, my Superman is gone. Now is the time for me to stand in my strength, and all of the things that he's taught me, I feel it so much more now. Or I never really took it for granted before, but they mean so much more now. Now is the time for me to really savor it and honor it, and put it in action.
Yeah, he's still, because you think, like, he's still speaking to you.
Still,
like you know him. You can actually simulate a conversation with him just from the lessons that he taught you. And it's what you're saying is kind of like what Viktor Frankl talk about in the book Man's Search for Meaning. What is the purpose of this? Like, there's some bigger purpose. There's something I can take away from this. And I think what he took away from it was, if I make it through this, I can tell my story. I can influence so many people. I can give them the stuff that I used to find meaning purpose out of all of this suffering that I was going through.
Right.
So
Exactly. I mean, even when Opus passed away, man, that, you know, that wasn't just someone who was my business partner, it was my friend. Now what do I do? Now I have to do this alone. You know, this wasn't even my idea, it was his idea.
yeah,
You know,
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So that was the meaning of my breakup. I mean, my divorce, I'm like, I needed to go through that so that I can resonate on a deeper level with my clients. When they come here, I'm not someone who's been married for 30. My dad's been married for 30 years. I'm like, Dad, I can't even come to you about relationship advice because you found a unicorn or something. Because you can't put yourself up in my shoes, and I can't put myself in your shoes.
Right.
But I got to roll. I'm sorry. This went on for a while.
Yeah, it did, man. I told you, man, the lives is bad. They just
yeah.
they
These
just
are
keep
just these are
time
just regular
flat.
conversations we have just all the time. So
Yeah.
we let you guys in on our talk.
Right.
So it's good
That's
to see you, brother.
Really
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody that came in. You know, this has been talked about for a long time. Definitely probably something that we have to do on a regular basis going forward, and really because we have different audiences, but we really have the same audiences, you know.
Right.
And the things, you and I have different approaches, but it's still the same approach. It's just, you know, different flavor. You know what I mean? And you know, I look at.
I don't think people necessarily buy the service. They buy the person. You know, and just for who they are.
Yep. Exactly, man. So this is something that we've been talking about for quite a while.
Yeah, we're gonna
I don't
do
know
it
why
again.
it took this long, man.
I'm still trying. Well, we have stages, we have seasons in our life where some seasons are busier than other ones.
Yeah.
And I mean, most of the time it's like, man, we're gonna do it. Thursday. Nah, it's not a good day for me. So it is what it is. We'll see y'all again, and we appreciate you guys for being here.
Yeah.
And it's my brother from another mother. Appreciate you, man.
Man, 1,000%.
Big fan of yours.
Man,
sure.
Likewise, man. Thank you to everybody that reached out. Thank you so much. If we didn't answer your question, hopefully, you know, next time you join, we'll be able to get it. Yeah. But hopefully, you know, the playback will be on both of ours profile, and drop a comment. We probably be able to
make that work.
All right.
All right. Peace, brother.
Same to you, man. Take care. Talk to you soon.